The corporate lobby gleamed with marble floors and glass walls, every surface polished to perfection. Managers in tailored suits strutted through like they owned the world, their voices sharp, their laughter smug. But near the elevators, a janitor bent quietly to his work, mop in hand, head bowed. He was invisible to them until the manager decided to make him a target. Pathetic, the manager sneered, kicking the mop bucket so the dirty water splashed across the floor. Can't even clean properly? Maybe you should quit before you embarrass yourself further. His voice echoed, drawing the eyes of employees who smirked but said nothing. What no one realized was that standing just a few feet away, disguised in simple clothes, was the company's CEO. He had been watching everything. His eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with cold calculation. The insult had landed, and the arrogance was clear. What the manager didn't know was that the janitor had a powerful ally in the shadows, and the revenge about to unfold would be swift, shocking, and unforgettable. The janitor's hands trembled slightly as he steadied the mop, his knuckles pale against the handle. He had worked in the building for years, rising before dawn to make sure every corner shone before the office came alive. He never sought attention, never complained. His job was humble, but he took pride in it. That pride shattered with every cruel word the manager spat. "Look at this mess," the manager barked, gesturing dramatically at the water now pooling on the marble floor, water he himself had caused. "You're nothing but a waste of company money. Do you even know what professionalism means?" His voice dripped with disdain, loud enough for the small crowd nearby to hear. A pair of assistants snickered behind their hands. A security guard shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. The janitor's face burned with shame. His lips parted, as if he wanted to defend himself, but no words came. In this place, he had no voice. To answer back would only bring more humiliation. He bent lower, trying to clean the spill quickly, hoping the humiliation might fade as swiftly as it had come. But the manager wasn't finished. "Pathetic," he said again, crossing his arms and towering over the bent figure. "People like you are the reason this company struggles. You drag us down. Do you know who I am? I manage entire departments. And you? You can't even keep a floor dry." The cruel words hung heavy in the air. Each syllable landed like a slap, stripping away dignity. The employees standing by chose silence. To challenge the manager meant risking their own comfort, their own positions. It was easier to laugh, to look away, to pretend nothing unjust was happening. The janitor, isolated, carried the weight alone. And just a few steps away, dressed in simple clothes that concealed his true identity, the CEO watched every second unfold. His heart hardened at the sight. He had come undercover to learn the truth about his company, to see what culture thrived when executives weren't looking. Now, the truth was clearer than glass. His trusted manager, the one he had elevated and praised in meetings, was nothing more than a bully, feeding his ego by crushing those beneath him. The janitor's mop slipped from his grasp, clattering loudly against the marble. A small gasp echoed from the assistants, followed by muffled laughter. The manager smirked, sensing an opportunity to humiliate further. "Clumsy, too," he jeered. "You're a walking disaster. Do us all a favor and disappear. You're lucky we even let people like you in this building." The janitor froze. His chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, his eyes fixed on the floor. For a moment, it seemed he might crumble entirely under the weight of the cruelty. But before he could move, a new voice cut through the lobby, a calm, steady voice that carried authority even in its softness. "That's enough." Heads turned. Employees blinked in confusion. The manager straightened, annoyance flickering across his features as he sought the source of the interruption. The disguised CEO stepped forward. His posture was relaxed, his tone controlled, but his gaze was sharp as steel. He had seen enough. The humiliation had been drawn to its cruel peak, and now it was time for the tables to turn. The janitor glanced up, startled. For the first time in this endless barrage of insults, he wasn't alone. Someone had spoken for him. And though the manager smirked, unaware of who exactly he was dealing with, the entire lobby could feel the shift in the air. The challenge had been made, and the stage was set for a reckoning that would leave no doubt about who truly held the power in this building. The tension in the lobby had reached its peak. The janitor stood frozen, humiliated, while the manager smirked with misplaced confidence. And yet, the disguised CEO's calm words cut through the air like a blade, signaling that everything was about to change. The crowd could sense it, justice was on its way, and the bully's arrogance was about to collapse in spectacular fashion. And just like this story is building toward a powerful turn, I want to pause here and invite you to be part of our journey. If you've been hooked by what's unfolding, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. These stories are made to inspire, to remind us that dignity and justice matter, even in the most unexpected places. Hit that button, join our community, and don't miss what happens next. Because trust me, you're going to want to see the revenge when it strikes. The lobby's stillness was unsettling. The CEO, disguised in plain clothes, took a step forward. His eyes locked on the manager, who still stood smugly, arms crossed as though he owned the floor. "I said, that's enough," the CEO repeated, his voice low but cutting through every whisper. The manager arched an eyebrow. "And who exactly are you? Some errand boy? Keep walking before I report you too." His smirk widened as a few assistants chuckled nervously, trying to ride his wave of arrogance. But the CEO didn't flinch. "You think humiliating someone makes you powerful? You think mocking a man doing his job gives you status?" He glanced at the janitor, who clutched his mop handle as if it were a lifeline. Respect isn't earned by stepping on others. The employees shifted uneasily. It wasn't common to hear anyone challenge a manager so directly. The assistants looked at each other, unsure whether to laugh or shrink back. The janitor's eyes flickered with something between gratitude and disbelief. Someone had finally spoken up. The manager scoffed. "Listen, whoever you are, you don't get it. This is how the real world works. Some of us lead. Some of us mop floors. It's not bullying, it's hierarchy." He stepped closer, trying to use his height as intimidation. "Now, move along before you regret opening your mouth." The CEO leaned in slightly, his expression calm, even amused. "Hierarchy? Is that what you call it? Interesting. Because where I come from, leaders are supposed to lift people up, not grind them into the ground." His words carried a weight that made several employees inhale sharply. It was as though, beneath the simple clothes, an unseen authority radiated. Still oblivious, the manager waved a dismissive hand. "Spare me the lecture. You're defending a janitor, for heaven's sake. What does he matter? He's replaceable. People like him don't add value, they just clean up after the rest of us." A murmur spread through the crowd. Some looked down, ashamed, realizing how often they had thought the same without saying it aloud. Others glanced nervously at the janitor, who stood frozen, his dignity hanging by a thread. The CEO's gaze hardened. He turned slightly, addressing the crowd as much as the manager. "Replaceable? Look around you. This building, this company, this image you're so proud of, it shines because of people like him. You walk across clean floors every morning without thinking. You breathe in fresh air because someone scrubbed the dust you never saw. And you dare to call that worthless?" His voice rose slightly, not in anger, but with righteous conviction. The word struck deeper than any shouted command. The lobby fell silent again. Even the assistants who had laughed earlier now shifted uncomfortably, their eyes fixed on the ground. The janitor's shoulders straightened ever so slightly, as though each word restored a piece of his dignity. But the manager wasn't ready to surrender. He sneered, though his tone carried less certainty now. "You sound like one of those bleeding hearts. But talk is cheap. This is business. Results are what matter. Respect doesn't pay bills." The CEO tilted his head, his calm smile unwavering. "You're right. Results matter." He let the words hang for a moment, then added, "And you're about to see exactly what kind of results arrogance brings." The crowd stirred, curiosity sparking in their eyes. Something was shifting. The disguised CEO had begun to set the stage, not with threats, but with truths that cut sharper than any reprimand. Justice was gathering momentum, and though no one knew the full extent of who this man really was, everyone could sense it. The revenge, swift and undeniable, was already in motion. The tension was palpable. The manager's smirk faltered, but pride still held his tongue steady. Results, you say? Fine. Let me show you results. I've doubled my department's productivity this quarter. I've cut costs, increased output. That's why I'm respected here. He puffed out his chest, looking around for support. This company runs because of managers like me. But no applause came. No murmurs of agreement. Only the quiet shuffling of feet, employees looking anywhere but at him. The disguised CEO folded his arms, studying him as though examining a failed investment. Then, with deliberate calm, he spoke. Respect isn't built on numbers alone. Respect is built on integrity. And today, in front of all these witnesses, you've shown exactly who you are. The manager scoffed, though his voice cracked slightly. And who are you to lecture me? The CEO straightened, his presence expanding like a storm cloud unfurling. I'm someone who knows this company inside and out. I know every report you've padded, every shortcut you've taken, every ounce of fear you've used to keep people silent. I've seen your kind before, and I assure you, they never last. His tone sharpened with each word, slicing away the manager's composure. Whispers rippled across the lobby. The assistants looked at one another, stunned. The janitor's eyes widened. Was this stranger more than he seemed? Something in his words carried too much weight, too much certainty, to belong to just another bystander. The manager's face turned red. That's slander. You can't just walk in here and talk like you own the place. His voice rose, shrill with desperation. The CEO stepped closer, closing the space between them until only inches remained. His voice dropped low, yet every word carried across the silent lobby. But I do own the place. Gasps erupted. The assistants nearly dropped their clipboards. The security guard straightened, eyes wide. The janitor froze, mop in hand, staring at the man who had just revealed himself. The manager staggered back, his bravado collapsing in an instant. What are you saying? The CEO pulled a slim card from his pocket and held it up. Embossed letters gleamed under the fluorescent lights, Chief Executive Officer. Recognition rippled like a wave through the crowd. For the first time all day, the manager was speechless. The CEO's eyes narrowed. You thought humiliating this man made you strong. You thought mocking his work raised your value. But what you didn't know is that every insult you hurled was a test. And you failed spectacularly. The staff broke into a low chorus of whispers, disbelief mixing with awe. The janitor's chest rose with a shaky breath, dignity flooding back as he realized the truth. The most powerful man in the company had seen his pain and chosen to stand beside him. The CEO turned, addressing everyone. Let this be clear, in my company, respect is not optional. Status does not give you the right to crush others. Every role matters. Every person matters. Without that principle, we are nothing but a hollow shell of success. Applause erupted, not loud at first, but genuine. The assistants clapped hesitantly, then stronger. The security guard joined in. Even the janitor, his eyes shining, gripped his mop tightly and let a small, proud smile break across his face. The manager tried to recover, stammering, "Sir, I didn't realize." The CEO silenced him with a raised hand. Exactly. You didn't realize. And that is why you no longer belong here. His words landed like a verdict. The crowd gasped, stunned by the swiftness of the judgment. The manager's mouth opened in protest, but no words came. His face crumpled, drained of arrogance. He turned toward the elevators, his exit marked not by dignity, but by the stares of those who had once cowered beneath him. The CEO let the silence settle, then turned back to the janitor. He placed a steady hand on the man's shoulder. Your work is not invisible. I see you. And from this day forward, so will everyone else." The janitor's throat tightened. Words failed him, but his gratitude shone in his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as background, but as essential. The lobby burst into applause again, louder this time, filled with respect and relief. And in that moment, justice was no longer just a word. It was alive, breathing, undeniable. The lobby, moments before a theater of arrogance and humiliation, had transformed into a stage of revelation and justice. Applause thundered in waves, echoing against glass and marble as the dismissed manager disappeared into the elevator, his face pale, his shoulders bent under the weight of disgrace. No one followed him. No one spoke up in his defense. For years, his cruelty had gone unchecked, but in a single instant, the balance had shifted, and the karmic scales demanded repayment. The CEO let the sound roll for a moment before raising his hand. Gradually, silence returned. His gaze swept across the crowd, not with disdain but with a gravity that demanded attention. Every person here deserves dignity. Every role in this company, from the top office to the night shift, is essential. When we lose sight of that, we lose the very foundation of what we stand for. The word struck deeper than any corporate slogan. The assistants, usually overlooked, straightened their backs with pride. The security guard nodded firmly, relief washing over his face. And the janitor, the man who had endured so many careless insults, stood taller, his eyes glistening with the validation he had never thought possible. The CEO turned to him, his tone softening. "You've been invisible for too long. Not because of your work, but because people chose not to see you. That ends today." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a sleek card. "From this moment forward, you'll have a direct line to my office. If ever you face disrespect again, it won't be ignored. Not under my leadership." The janitor's hands trembled as he accepted the card. He had no words, only a nod that carried the weight of gratitude words could not hold. Around him, murmurs rose, astonishment, admiration, and even guilt from those who had witnessed his daily mistreatment in silence. They saw now what they should have seen long ago, a man deserving of respect. Meanwhile, whispers about the manager's downfall spread like wildfire. For years he had crafted an image of strength, but it had always been built on fear, not respect. Now, stripped of authority and power, his reputation collapsed overnight. Calls began to circulate among department heads. How could we have tolerated him this long? The irony was bitter. Those who had once flattered him now wanted nothing to do with him. Justice had arrived, swift and merciless. The CEO, however, did not gloat. He turned back to his people, his voice steady. Leadership is not about belittling others. It's about raising them higher. If this company is to thrive, it will be because we lift each other up, not tear one another down. The staff erupted again in applause, not the timid claps of compliance, but the fervent cheers of hearts stirred awake. Some even shouted, "Yes, and that's right." The atmosphere shifted from tension to empowerment. The CEO had not only removed a tyrant, he had restored hope. The janitor, overwhelmed by the sudden wave of attention, bowed his head slightly. But the CEO placed a firm hand on his shoulder, guiding him to stand tall. "Don't lower your gaze," he said gently. "You belong here, just as much as anyone else." Tears welled in the janitor's eyes. For years, he had survived in the shadows, enduring snickers, mockery, and indifference. But in this moment, he stood as a symbol for every unseen worker, for every overlooked role. His quiet dignity had outshone the false power of arrogance. As the crowd began to disperse, conversations buzzed with newfound energy. The assistants talked about how differently things would be run from now on. The security guard vowed to step in if he ever saw disrespect again. For the first time in years, the company's walls seemed to breathe with life, not fear. And the dismissed manager? His punishment was not just unemployment. His legacy was shattered. He became the cautionary tale whispered in hallways, the man who lost everything because he couldn't show an ounce of respect. No one pitied him. His cruelty had earned its price, and justice had been paid in full. The CEO, satisfied but not boastful, turned once more to the janitor. "You've reminded us of something vital today. That strength doesn't come from titles or suits. It comes from character. And in that, you've proven to be the strongest man in this room." The janitor, humbled, shook his head. "I was just doing my job," he whispered. The CEO smiled softly. "Exactly. And that's what makes it extraordinary." Together, they left the lobby, one carrying the weight of responsibility, the other carrying the gift of dignity restored. The company, still buzzing with the shock of revelation, would not forget this day. It was more than a lesson. It was a turning point. And as the janitor returned to his work, not with bitterness, but with quiet pride, he understood something profound. His worth had never depended on recognition. But having it acknowledged, at last, was its own form of justice. For the CEO, it was proof that sometimes the greatest leaders are not those who command the loudest, but those who see the ones the world refuses to see. And for everyone watching, it was a reminder that arrogance may rise quickly, but respect is what endures. And so, what began as an ordinary day ended as a moment no one in that lobby would ever forget. Respect triumphed over arrogance, and justice was served right where it was most needed. The janitor, once invisible, walked away not only with dignity restored, but as the symbol of what true strength looks like: humility, character, and quiet resilience. If this story struck a chord with you, if you believe that every person deserves to be seen, heard, and valued, then you are part of the community we're building here. Drop a comment below and share what moment of quiet strength has inspired you in your own life. Let's make this space one where stories of dignity and justice live on. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Together, let's keep telling stories that remind us all, real power comes from respect.